Hello, everyone. This is Akhila, and we have with us Emmanuel, who is the CEO of BrainSight.AI. When she provided a guest lecture at our college, and I had been mind blown by the entire experience. And I think we would be much better off in getting to know her from her own words. Laina, can you share a little bit about your journey so far and what led you to co-found BrainSight.AI?
So I founded BrainSight in 2019, and my journey before that was I think I have over 20 years of experience, professional experience across being a software engineer, and then I shifted into public health because I found that more impactful. And then from public health, I went and did my MBA in healthcare, particularly healthcare and marketing, to be more precise. And then I went on to start BrainSight in 2019. Yeah.
What's the idea behind BrainSight? What does Brightside AI do? If you can give us a brief around it.
BrainSight essentially works on advanced brain mapping, and it looks at how to map the functions of the brain, which is a very difficult thing to map. So we use detailed MRIs of the patient to be able to map the brain.
Got it. And is this something that was there since I'm assuming you do not come from a medical background like an MBBS, so to say? How did you stumble upon this opportunity? Or is that something that was always there going on in your mind?
No, I actually came to know about this in 2019 when I started the company. So we were part of this program called Entrepreneur First, which basically brings together PhDs and not PhDs together. And you can work with various PhDs with various different specialties and figure out what you want to work on. And so the program allowed me the liberty to work with at least five different PhDs working on five different, absolutely different spaces. And I was then able to, both Rimchim and I then really liked working with each other. And Rimchim's PhD was in advanced brain mapping under the psychiatry department at NIMHANS.
So now I'm assuming that you guys also collaborate with a lot of stakeholders. These range from, say, doctors, medical officers, and everyone, right? What are those certain skill sets that you, as a person who's from a non-medical background, needs to have?
Think so. I think my biggest skill, I guess, and which I think I've trained myself also, is to be able to bring extremely different people who speak very different languages together, and keep the conversation really focused. So I think that's really helped because I work with people with a neuroscience background, which is very different from a clinical background, which is very different from a sales or a marketing background, and I think that ability to translate between different domains is something that I think is has been incredibly useful in this space. The second, I think, is even though I'm not a neuroscientist, I do read a lot of science and cutting edge science and maths. And in fact, I follow a lot of magazines like your Quantum magazine, your Three Quarks Daily, etc. And I've always been very interested in maths and science. So I think the ability to, and I read really fast. So I think these are some of the things that have helped me to read and assimilate really fast when I'm in a deep technology field such as this, and help to lead the team as well.
Then why didn't you stay in public policy? Why did you move towards entrepreneurship?
I found public policy a little too slow for my taste, and so I think, in general, I'm always on the lookout for. I think we all have a short life, right? Like, what's the one big thing that you can do with your life which will create the most impact? So public policy is great. I mean, it makes absolutely stellar impact, but the pathway through it was slow for me. And I don't come from a public policy PhD or any of those, so it makes it slower for me to be able to be at the position of power that can allow me to build things and do things faster. And so for me, the choice was either to go for a PhD further in the space of international development or policy, or to kind of take the skills that I had learned across software and and MBA and public policy and see if there's something more impactful that I can create out of it.
So, from what I understand, is that BrainSight AI takes it a further ahead than normal psychology and also what a neurosurgeon or a neurologist do. Am I right in stating so?
So, I mean, these are, I think there's a plain divide in the when there are brain disorders, there's a possibility of a person going like the journey is pretty long. These are quite chronic conditions. So a patient might see a neurosurgeon when they want to go for a surgery. Once the neurosurgeon does their job, then they go to a neurologist who helps them with the medical management of the disorder, and then they might go to a psychiatrist if there are psychiatric ramifications, or a psychologist. So I think in our case, the advanced brain mapping helps all three clinicians. For surgeons, it helps in identifying the area that they should avoid to ensure minimal functional loss for the patient. For neurologists, it helps in understanding which functions of the brain are affected and how the medicine is acting. And for psychiatrists, it helps in understanding the cognitive effects one cognitive effects of the drugs. It helps in understanding the cognitive functions of the brain which might have been affected. It helps in understanding areas of the brain that might be stimulated most. These are some of the things that are useful for psychiatrists. I think it's across the board. There are people who can find value in this.
Understood. And something that I find quite interesting in your journey is that, or even when I had interacted with you, it seemed to me that you have always worked with quite fast-paced teams, or you have led fast-paced teams. Uh, Now, me being someone who has had very less experience working and then doing my MBA, right? What is something that you can give as an advice to someone like me, where after my MBA, I'll be going into a fast-paced environment again? So how can I balance my life? How can I work around it so that I can keep continuing it for a long time?
It's a hard question. I think all of us figure out our own ways through it. Um, I think at least in a startup, you have the advantage of, I think the startup is more about doing things imperfectly, but having the momentum. So that really helps. Second is actually, I think the thing that made us the fastest was the fact that we were always surrounded by people who were doing incredibly ambitious things, right? And going much faster than us. And which I think was the key reason why we also went fast. And I think I find that even now when I'm leading BrainSight and when I go to Silicon Valley and I suddenly see like people who are working on the brain, the kind of questions and the kind of speed that they show is so different than what you show in India. And suddenly I'm like, oh my God, we're not fast enough. And so then I come back and I'm like, okay, we need to make this faster. And so I think just surrounding yourself with ambitious people is probably the single most important advice I would give, even in your new job or wherever you go.
And for the new entrepreneurs who are more or less wanting to go in either in health or technology or a mix of healthcare technology, what advice would you give them?
I think in healthcare, particularly, two things. For people who have had zero exposure to government or regulations, I would say I think they need to understand how regulations work. And I think they need to understand why regulations exist, because I think there's a reason why it exists, and it's important for them to kind of build towards that and always think about that when they're building their company. And for people who already know enough about regulations and they hate it, I think the other piece I have is that regulations can be your friends. And like you need to kind of think of it in a particular way. So I think these are two things when you're working in healthcare. In technology, I think the biggest thing is how do you create a great team, and how do you create a culture for a great team? And because there are excellent engineers in India, and like the more you are able to give them the freedom, the more they do wonders. And so you just have to get out of their way. So how do you do that? I think that's probably those are two things.
From what I understand, you also have worked with teams wherein, people's age and demography have a very wide range. So, how do you manage such people in the same team, ensuring that it goes to the same goal?
It's a hard one. I think millennials are hard. So, so I think no, I think millennials are hard. I think older people are also hard. But I think people are messy. People are different, and so you have to learn how to work with each set of people. With millennials, I've seen that they like their um, they like a deeply respectful relationship, and which basically means that if they get scolded, they immediately like get taken aback, which I find while you if you talk to somebody who's senior, who's worked in a space for a long time, they take criticism in their stride very easily, right? And so um, being able to kind of uh, make myself work in those ways. Um, though I am very, very upfront about my criticism. And so I've had to learn not to be as much when I'm talking to younger people. I've had great mentors, I think, people who've made me who I am. I mean, the particular skill of talking to different people and getting them to all come on the same page and then work towards a single goal. I think the single most important one would be I mentored under this person called Paul Currency, who basically does this thing called dialogue mapping, and he has this brilliant blog called Clever Workarounds. He also has two books, which talk about the art of dialogue mapping. And I think when you're talking to different people, knowing where they're coming from and being able to stitch that together is what dialogue mapping is really about. I find that really, really useful because I can go into a room and I can sense when a conversation is off kilter just because the unsaid assumptions have not been brought out. And so I think that's something that was very useful for me.
I think that is quite important because I mean, with the newer generation of Gen Z coming into the picture as well, to be able to understand, read the room, and how you explained to know what assumptions haven't been spoken out, right? It becomes important. Even with something as simple as our study groups that we have, if we do not have the underlying assumption being spoken out by one member, the entire project goes for deroute.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are so many, I think there are unsaid assumptions which are not even known by the people themselves, right? I think you might be, just to give you a few examples, right? Engineers have been taught as in their part of their work to always work around constraints and build a product. While scientists have always been taught to um, keep looking for more data to solve a problem. Now, nobody will ever actually talk about these assumptions if you ask them, why are you saying this? But the point being that these are unsaid assumptions which determine their worldview. And if you have to get an engineer and a scientist to work together, you need to be able to understand that and kind of help them articulate it and help them see how different people work. And I think another example is a lawyer always works with legal language in place, while a commercial person will always work with, I want to close the deal now, right? And the speed is very different. And the way they look at things is very different. And when it comes down to brass tacks, it comes down to very small, small things that might suddenly blow up because you don't know that that's what the person cares about. So, yeah, things like that.
What do you think is the unsaid assumption of an entrepreneur?
Unanswered, I think entrepreneurs, that's a great question. So, entrepreneurs in general, I think their product. I think entrepreneurs also are of so many different shades, but I think there are most entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking that if they build a product, the person will come, the customer will come. Another unsaid assumption is, I think this comes with younger entrepreneurs, is throw more people at a problem and it'll be solved. But what I've learned in software is that the more people you throw at a problem, the more problems it'll create. And so you
Yeah.
need to be able to figure out what the constraint is and then kind of work around it.
Following on that, what do you think is the unsaid assumption people have towards the CEO?
People towards a CEO. Of course, I think what I've realized is that they think that everything I say is serious, which is not true. I think India has a problem with authority figures in general, and so they tend to listen and then not to question. So I think I try really hard to not have that culture in BrainSight where younger people can't question the older people, but I think there's an inherent, like I might be bantering or I might be wanting you to come back with like um, ways in which you think my proposal is wrong, but um, the the unsaid assumption is because I've said it, it's great, and which is actually quite disheartening for me. I actually like people who can spar with me intellectually, and so yeah, if somebody bores me to death with like by not questioning what I'm doing, I don't like it too much.
How did you come to create that culture?
I have a system I follow called the Holacracy. It comes from a book called it's, it's named Holacracy, and I thought that that was a brilliant book in the way that they design the teams and how they kind of make every person accountable for their own results. And the underlying assumption there is no one person knows everything, like not even the CEO, right? Like the CEO doesn't have all the answers. The CEO just talks to more people who are high level and so might have some interesting insights. But most of the times, the people who are put in a particular function know a lot more about that particular function than I ever would. And so the way the holacracy is defined is kind of it structures the organization around the concept of a holacracy. And everything from like governance meetings to how people are made accountable for certain results. All of those are kind of um, designed using the holacratic principle in mind.
Uh, how many books do you consume? And how do you choose which book?
I read a lot. I used to, maybe I should say that. I used to read a lot. I feel like I don't read enough these days, but I this year have restarted my reading a lot more. How do I choose a book? I like complicated, tough books, and I don't read all of it in one go, and I love nonfiction. So I have like a combination of nonfiction and fiction going on at this any time. And how do I choose? I think the award-winning books, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the literary prize winners, all of those are usually like the top ones in my list. And then the ones which people talk about a lot.
Also, I wanted to understand this. Since you're the CEO, there is a certain level of characters that you have to embody, right? Which you have to showcase to people that they also would be looking at and they would also start imitating it. Uh, in general, when you look at a CEO or when someone becomes a CEO, what do you think are the main criteria that they need to have in them?
It's a great question. I don't know. I think I think being a CEO is like being anything else in your life, right? Like it's about bringing who you are to the table. So I possibly might not fit a lot of the CEO mold because I don't I yeah, but so I don't know. So but I like to bring myself to the table because I don't know any other way to be. So I think but that said, some of the things that might be see, anything I say, there are exceptions to it. So I might say that, hey, you need to have a certain gravitas, but there are lots of CEOs who don't have gravitas. You
Yeah.
need to be very measured in your words because you're working with so many different stakeholders. But then I see a lot of CEOs who will shoot from their hip and they are doing very well. So I think it's really about like leaning into your own strengths as a CEO, as who you are, and kind of learning. I think the only single thing that I think is important in being a CEO is to be a really fast learner, because you are thrown into so many situations on a daily basis that you just need to quickly figure out what needs to be done.
How do you de-stress back so that you're back on your toes again the next day?
I I don't have ways to. I think I have my dogs. I have my family. My mom comes home for dinner, and I we watch TV. And my mom certainly does not think anything about being a CEO. Her points would be more like, okay, when do we go and buy rice and chicken and for the dogs and stuff like that, right? Like, and you by default, like your family would never ever consider you would like very CEO-ish like, and
Yeah.
so their conversation will always de-stress you. So I think I'm very blessed to have my family around who don't consider any of this very important.
I think that grounds you in a way and it brings you back to normalcy that you're just the daughter who has to do all of the things. Yes.
Pretty much, because I think like in between a really stressful day, my mother will call me and be like, "Let's go out. We have to buy one, two, three." And I'm like, "Mommy, I have like a call going on." She's like, "No, no, no, that you do later." And I'm like, "No." And so I think those kind of things really help.
Yes. I always was wondering, when you are being quite successful in your profession, right, you also need a really helpful family or spouse to help you throughout. How does that add to your personality?
I mean, I don't think I would be here without my husband. So my husband has his own startup, and so he's also going through all of those things. But honestly, like I think how he's been super supportive all throughout, and he's the one who actually keeps my time sacred, and he's the one who helps. And there are lots of things that I'm not good at and which he's really good at, and vice versa, right? Like I'm a little time blind when I have to do stuff, and so like when I have to do logistics, I'm pretty time blind. So he will make sure that I have to go for the next meeting, like run for this and stuff like that, right? Like I think he has been brilliant at, I don't think I would have been here without him. In terms of my family and so he has always been super supportive. I think my family, I think like any traditional Indian family, they would want that their daughter settles down and does all of these things. So with them, I've set boundaries very early on, and then I think once you set boundaries, then they respect it.
Right. Absolutely. I think that is something a lot of young women need to learn to be able to set boundaries quite early, or else it kind of backfires later on.
True, true. And that's the one thing that young girls are not taught, right? Like they're not, young girls are taught to not have boundaries. And so I think
Yes.
that's one of the hardest things. Like if you are considered sweet and you're considered, which in general, like women are supposed to be sweet and accommodating and all of that, right? Then then by default you will assume that if you keep boundaries you're not sweet, you're not accommodating enough, and so there's like a dichotomy there. And so like women are taught learned helplessness and not to set boundaries, and the more you learn it from a very early age the better it is, but it's also hard to learn it.
How do you unlearn it and learn to keep boundaries?
I think it's hard. I think Um, there's no easy solution to that. I mean, I think I've always been like a very good student and a very good daughter, and then as I grew up, I rebelled more. I think there are friends of mine who rebelled early on. I think get the first chance that you get, you should rebel a little bit, and you'll know the boundaries. And you can do rebel in small things, right? And so you kind of learn how to work as adults with your parents and with your boyfriend,
Mhm.
right? Because adults keep healthy boundaries with each other and they learn what works and what keeps the other person happy. And the more you learn how to keep those healthy boundaries with everybody, the more you yourself will have a very enjoyable relation with them. And I think that is something that people don't realize very early on. Indian culture doesn't particularly teach that. And so, yeah, I find once you do it, you find the healthy boundaries very, very free.
I think that is something I need to think of properly as well because till now, before my MBA, I was working in a lot of startups. So I never said a no to anyone. I always used to say yes because very honestly, I don't know why why I never said a no. I just kept saying yes because I wanted to prove it to them that I'm good. And at the same time, I was like, how can I say a no? I can always take more tasks.
Yeah,
But post MBA, I think I should start saying more no because I need to have some sort of balance as well.
absolutely with you.
Also, I wanted to ask you this, that what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think the one thing I want to be known for is kindness. I don't know if I am, but I think I want to be known for it. Being kind while also having my boundaries. So I think that is something that I think is one thing that I hope people think of when they think of me. It's a constant cycle, I'm sure, constant renewal cycle to see whether it's like a debit card which gets over, right? Like you do a little bit of kindness and then it gets over, and so you have to keep doing it till you get it right. The other thing I think is I do believe that India has so much potential in being able to do a lot of things in the brain space. I think on the manufacturing space, I think China has already taken over, and it's going to be very hard for us to be able uh, to to match up to them. But what we can certainly do is, um, given we are really good at services, given we are really good at cutting edge and really high level mathematical and high level thinking, right? We can do a lot in that space and build India into a great economy. And I do believe that neuroscience is one of those unknown, very cutting edge space where there's a lot you can do in service. And India's doctors are some of the best in the world. So a combination of neuroscience and medical in India can be incredibly powerful for India. So I do want to be known for being able to spearhead that, at least in the beginning, and then we'll see how it goes.
I think that is a quite a good pool because with stress creeping up on all of us and all of us either trying to get into therapy, but again, we not all of us really follow through with it. Uh, and at the same time, a quite of us keep repeating the same patterns. And I don't mean just India, I mean the overall world right now. And somewhere I think technology, like say mobiles or laptops or whatever, it gives us the illusion that we are a community, yet we are very isolated from people. And that has quite a lot of ramification on us as individuals. A lot of mental health professionals talk about like grounding exercises or morning or evening routine. Do you have any such routines that you follow?
I do have a routine. I have like quite tiny things which I do, like a set of 10, 15 things that I do in the morning, a set of like 4, 5 things that I do before sleeping, a set of 2 or 3 things that I do over the day. Um, and those actually, I've recently started that because um, because there was a lot of work and my husband had to go to the US, and there's so much work on my own side, and I didn't have my maid for 2 months because she had to go for a operation, and so there was just so much I had to do. And so I kind of started having these morning routines so that I don't get overwhelmed. I was brilliant. I actually quite recommend it. I've never been a routine person, but just having a routine in the morning makes sure, and then like not being able to tick that a few days, no, makes you think like, oh, damn it, like I need to get up early morning and get this done, get this done, get this done. And I think that's amazing. Yeah. No, I would strongly recommend a morning routine.
Any particular aspects of those morning routine which you think that everyone can benefit from?
If you ask for my morning routines, they'll be like, grab a load of laundry and put them for washing. Or they would be things like make sure that the dog's food is well so I have like a list of 50 checklist items that I have, which I quickly do so that I can get things done, or like make sure that my plants are well watered, check whether they are wilting away or dying or stuff like that, right? Like so I my home provides my routine, I think, and I love it. I don't think it'll work for everybody. I actually like making my space a little bit my own, and that makes me a little happy and keeps me a little away from like the impending doom during the day. So
Right. I think somewhere it gives you a win before you start your day.
true, actually. That's
Yeah.
so well said. Yes, it does. Like having those 15 things marked off is quite a thing in the morning, like, hey, I have marked out all this. I am already winning. And then you kind of go on to like having like an investor meeting and having a sales meeting and having like fraught meetings, internal meetings. Why is this not happening? And all of those. But like you've got your 15 things done in the morning.
Just one last question. If there is one thing, one word for you to define your leadership style, what would that one word be?
I would like to think it's servant leadership. What I mean by that is, I am here to kind of help you get to your potential, and through that, make sure that we're reaching a very high goal. So I think the same thing that I talk about healthy boundaries with families and boyfriends and husbands and all of that is the same thing that I have with employees as well. I expect them to act like adults with me, do their work and come back and like have conversations about what could and what could not happen, stuff like that. And I give them the same respect in terms of um, not not micromanaging or doing any of those things. So I think, yeah, that's probably what I would call my style as.
Thank you so much for your time. I personally really liked the conversation because I was kind of dying to have a conversation with you. When you had when you did the leadership session with us, right? For me personally, I know you were doing it for everyone else, but for me personally, it felt like you're just doing it for me because there were so many questions in my head that you were just answering while you were doing the session, and I was like, wow. So
Thank you
that
so
is one
much
of
for
the
saying.
reasons I wanted to talk to you.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. I think a good listener makes the person in front also speak. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.